Hello everyone and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson we'll be covering navigation and layouts using Angular Material Design Patterns. Now that we've added our theme, let's go ahead and generate three new components. So we're going to generate a book list component, a contact component, and an about component. Now that those components have been created, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this terminal window, and we'll open up our routing file to create routes for those three different components. So you're looking for the app-routing.module.ts file, and then on line 5 where you have your routes, we want to go ahead and add those routes there. So the first route is going to be a default to the book list component. So we're going to say path, open and closing quotation mark, and then we're just going to say component, and then that's going to be the book list component. Now you will need to import over those three components, so I'll go ahead and do that now too. So we'll say import book list component. We'll then need to import over the contact and then the about component. Okay, with those three components imported over, we'll go ahead and finish up adding our routes. All right, and as we talked about in previous exercises and tutorials, I have three routes here. One for book list, which is just going to be localhost 4200 slash book list. Then I have one for contact, which is again is localhost 4200 slash contact. And then one for about, which is localhost 4200 slash about. With those three components wired together, we're going to open up our app.module.ts file, and we'll start importing over our Angular material objects that we're going to be using in this application. So we're going to actually want to import over the toolbar module, the card module, the button module, the list module, flex layout, and then the mat icon module. So I'm going to go ahead and start importing those over now. Okay, with all those different modules imported, the next thing we want to do is we want to add them to our imports array. Okay, with all those imported over, we'll go ahead and open up our app.component.ts file. We're going to want to create an assignment variable that is going to be a string value. And then in our constructor, which we'll need to add, we're going to go ahead and assign that assignment variable a value of exercise 5.2 navigation and layout. So we'll say this.assignment equals and then we can get rid of the title, a variable that's already pre-generated with the application when you create an application. Next thing we want to do is let's open up our .scss file, and then inside this one we're actually going to add the code for a logo. So we're going to say class logo, then we're going to say margin top, and that's going to be 5 pixels. We're also going to have a main container. We'll give this one a padding top of 25 pixels. We'll give it a width of 80%, and then we'll give it a margin 0 auto. All right, let's go ahead and close all this out, and then we'll open up our HTML file and start building our main layout for our application. So inside here, let's go ahead and remove all of the pre-generated code. We're going to add a matte toolbar, and we'll give it a class of toolbar. Inside this matte toolbar, we're going to need to add a row. So we'll say matte toolbar row. Then we're going to have a div, and that's going to be for our logo. So we'll say div class logo. And then we're going to add an image. So we'll say image and then source. And then for this, we would just want to point to the image inside of our assets directory. So I'm going to say ./assets, and then the name of the image. And if you notice, I have this image here. So if I just go to rename, I'm not actually going to rename it, but I just want to copy the entire name. And I can just paste it in there. And then we're going to give this a height of 80. Okay, and then underneath that, we're going to have a div, we'll say style 80%. And this is going to be a width. And then inside this, we're going to say div fx layout. We're going to give this a row with wrap. We're going to align these items to the end. So in other words, we want this on the far right side of the screen. So we'll say end and then start. Inside here, we're going to have a button. We're going to call it a matte button. We're going to give it a router link. And this router link is going to navigate to our book list. And we'll just give it a text value of book list. Next, we'll add another button. And this one is going to be for our contact link. And the final one is going to be for the About Us link. So we'll say button. Router link for about, and then a text value of about. And we'll just fix all this so it's all neatly formed. Underneath our toolbar, we're going to add a new line, and then we're going to add another div section. So this one will be div fx layout. We want this to be a row, and then we're going to wrap it. We're going to say div fx flex. And inside this, we're going to create a mat card. So we're going to have a card. So we'll need a mat card title. And then we're also going to need a mat card content. So inside our card, we're going to say main container. So we're going to give it that class main container that we created. For our title, we're going to say, let's give this a class of blue. And we're going to give it the value of the assignment variable that we created. So we're just going to say assignment. Underneath the title, we'll add 2 new lines. And then in the content of this is where we're going to add our router outlet. Once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and create an interface. So underneath our app directory, we're going to say new file, and then we're going to name this one book.interface.ts. We'll go ahead and open up the interface file if it doesn't already open up for you. We'll close out the other files that we have open. And then inside this, we're going to say export interface iBook. We're going to have a few fields. We're going to have an ISBN field of string type. We're going to have a title field of string, a description field of string, a num of pages field, and that's going to be a numerical value. And then we're going to have authors, which is going to be an array of strings. So again, we have a field called ISBN of type string, then we have a title of type string, a description of type string, a num of pages, which is going to be a numerical data type, and then a field called authors, which is going to be an array of string. So we'll go ahead and save this. Next we want to do is open up our about.component.html file so we can start building our about page. So I'll open it up. We can remove the pre-generated code. We're going to want to create a new div, which is going to have an fx layout of row, and then we're going to say wrap. So we'll say fx layout row, and then we'll just give it a wrap. Next, we're going to have an fx flex, and then we're going to say div, and then fx layout column. And inside this, we're going to have a div for our image. So we're going to say image and then source. And again, the same thing, we're going to pull our image that we're going to use. So I'm just going to right click on the image. I'm going to say rename, but I'm not actually going to rename this. I just want to copy the name of it, the image. So we're going to say /assets, and then we'll paste in the image. Underneath this div, we're going to want to go ahead and create another div. And inside this div, we're going to have the actual attribution that we're going to use for this. So I already saved that into a text file, so I'm just going to paste that into the screen here. So I'll just paste that in there. And then underneath this, we're actually want to create another section, and that's going to be for our information about the book. So we're going to say div fx flex. We'll have an h1 class, and then we're going to give this that class blue that we created. underneath this, I'm going to open up I'm going to have a paragraph tag. Again, I already saved the text for this, so I'm just going to paste it over into this paragraph text. And then underneath the paragraph tag, we're going to have our attribution again. So I'm going to say EM, and then inside this is where I'll paste in the text that I've already created. All right, with that saved, we'll go ahead and open up our contact component. We can remove the pre-generated code, and inside this one, we're going to have a div, and this is going to be an FX layout row with wrap. We're going to have a div and FX flex. This one is going to have a card, so we'll say mat card. Inside the card, we have a mat title. And then we also have a mat card content. For the title, we're going to say navigation. We're going to give this title a class, and we'll say card title icon. We also want to have a mat icon, so we'll say mat icon. And then we'll say color primary. And then we're going to give it a value of navigation. We'll have a break, so another new line. And then in the content, we're going to say class align center. And then we're going to have a couple paragraph tags for the address. Okay, underneath that div, we're going to have another column. So we're going to say div fx flex. This is going to be a mat card. We're going to have a mat card title. We'll have a mat card content. For the title, we're going to say class card title icon. And then inside the title, we're going to have a mat icon, but it's going to be a color primary. And we'll give an icon of phone. We'll have a break, so a new line to separate the title from the content. And inside here, we're going to say, we'll give it a class of align center. We'll have a couple paragraph tags. Okay, and then underneath that, we want to go ahead and add a few break lines so that we have just a little bit of text. So we're going to say and you just want to make sure you put this underneath our flex layout. So just make sure that it's underneath your main flex layout that we have here, because we're actually going to create a new flex layout. So we're going to say div fx layout, and then we'll give this one a column. We'll have a p tag. This one will say style, and then we'll say text align center. And we'll just add some text to this. Okay, we'll go ahead and save all this work, and then let's go ahead and run ng-serve and see if all the changes we had didn't break anything in the application. Everything looks the way we expect it to look. So I'll open up a new terminal window, and we'll just say ng-serve. Okay, once it's finished compiling, you should not see any errors down below in the terminal window. So let's go and open up a browser and take a look at the application. So we'll just need to navigate to localhost 4200. And assuming you wrote the application correctly and you followed along correctly, you should see this, a welcome screen that has our exercise name, which was in that blue font color that we created in the previous exercise. We can see our logo on the left-hand side here, in and out books. And then we also have 3 navigation links. We have book list, contact, and about. So if I click on the contact link, I'm going to see that I have 2 sections here. I have a card on the left-hand side and I have a card on the right-hand side. One is for the main street address, and the second one is for the phone number. And then I just have a little text at the bottom that just says, visit us online at one of our great locations throughout the Omaha metro area. If I click on the about link, I'm going to see that I have a card on the left-hand side that has that image for the author that I've selected, and then it just has some information about that author with a link to where I got the information, so the attribution links. If you notice when I hover over the link, there's an underlined underscore for that link, and that was for that class that we created. One thing you might notice is that when you look at the contact page, we can see this outline here for each of these cards. We can actually set the elevation of these cards to 0 so that we don't see those. So I'll go ahead and move back over to our Visual Studio Code. We'll open up our contact link, and inside these cards, we can actually add a class. So we can say class, and then mat elevation, and then what we're looking for is 0. And what that'll do is that'll remove the border from that card. And so we can do the same thing for the second one. And then we can save it. And then if we go back over to our UI, we'll just wait a second for the actual application to update. And you're going to notice those 2 outline cards are missing now, so they're not there. So that's just a great way to remove any kind of bordering for your cards if you don't want to show the different elevation of the cards. Because in some cases, you might have one card that's taller than the second card, and so you don't want to necessarily show that you're using cards, but you like the way the cards formalize or how they format the text and the code or the visual display of the content you're trying to show to the users. To recap, in this lesson we covered navigation, Angular material layouts. In our next lesson we'll be covering Angular material data tables. Thank you for watching.